Hello YouTube, our favorite Ottoman, Monsieur Neuvillette, is getting his second rerun in version 5.2. Here's everything you should know about his rerun, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Neuvillette was released in version 4.1 as our Hydro DPS. Now, upon his release, he had a little bit of competition in the form of Tartaglia and Ayato, but let's just say it doesn't really matter for him because he was easily able to power wash through the entire competition and came on top to be the best Hydro DPS, if not the best ever DPS in the history of Genshin Impact. As mentioned earlier, Neuvillette's role in a team is that of a main DPS, who generally depends on his child attack, equitable judgment to deal a major chunk of his damage. Now, let me actually show you how that actually functions. As you can see over here, Neuvillette has a special type of charge attack, deals 17.53% of his max HP as an HP scaling damage. Now, if anything we have learned from a release of a lot of Genshin Impact characters is that characters that scale off of HP generally have a higher ceiling for their damage, and Neuvillette clearly benefits from one of those. Now let me show you in action how that actually functions and how you're able to get up to the special type of charge attack. Neuvillette's playstyle as a main DPS generally revolves around how faster you can get his charge attacks up. An easy way to get his charge attacks up, special charge attacks I mean, is to press his skill, get the source water droplets on the screen, and do his charge attack. Another way, if you in case run out of his source water droplets from the skill, or let's say for example you get interrupted by the boss, you can also depend on his burst to generate upwards of 6 source water droplets, and then you can go and do your special charge attack damage bonus, which deals HP scaling damage to the enemies and generally scales higher than attack scaling multipliers. And yeah, that's pretty much it. His entire kit generally revolves around him generating source water droplets and then consuming the source water droplets to deal more damage. That's 101 of how you can Neuvillette in Abyss or any place in general. Now let's talk about Neuvillette's passive talent, Heir to the Ancient Seas Authority. Now this passive talent is what makes Neuvillette's charge attack to be as broken as it already is. Draconic Stats is one stack generated by Neuvillette whenever a party member triggers a Hydro-related reaction. Having Draconic Stat increases Neuvillette's charge attack damage by 110%, 125%, and 160% depending on the number of stacks you have. Keeping that in mind, a very good team for Neuvillette in version 4.1 would have been Yae Miko, Zhongli, and Kazuha. Kazuha debuffing the enemies and increasing the hydro damage bonus, Zhongli providing a very comfortable shield and shredding resistance, and whereas Miko provides much needed sub DPS off field. Neuvillette can be your on-fielder, and these three elements can react with Hydro to create Crystallize for Zhongli, Swirl for Kazuha, and Electrocharge for Miko, and therefore Neuvillette gains the max stacks and is easily able to achieve the maximum damage potential on his charge attacks. Notice I mentioned back in 4.1, I never said like nowadays because in version 4.2, we got this beautiful character called Furina. And after the release of Furina, even though she takes up a slot, Furina's damage buff became so much more crucial for Neuvillette that he was willing to sacrifice one additional Draconic stack just to gain the damage bonus from Furina's fanfare, therefore replacing like 3 different elements to just only 2 Hydro characters and 2 different elements if you really want to. Nowadays, Neuvillette and Furina is actually a very important duo core for Neuvillette's maximum damage potential team comps. They actually included sort of Zhongli. You can actually take Shilonen, which I don't actually have on this account, but yeah, replace Zhongli with Shilonen and Kazuha to buff Neuvillette's damage through the roof. Before we move any further, let me quickly cover Neuvillette's Constellation 1, which I consider to be a really good early constellation for him. What it basically does, it reduces your Draconic stat requirements from 3 to 2. Therefore, remember the team I mentioned with Furina and Neuvillette as a duo core, where you have to sacrifice a reaction firsthand. Now, if you have the C1, you really don't have to sacrifice it, and therefore, it kind of provides like 24% of damage over his Constellation 0. C2, let me just go over it quickly, is a extra crit damage buff, which is 11% roughly more damage on top of C1. C3 is his normal attack damage levels increased by 3, which again is roughly about a 20% more damage increase on top of his C2. And in total, if you really want to stop at an early phase Neuvillette to have the maximum damage for the least amount of money spent, I would personally stop at C3 because that's 60% of increased damage on the base C0. But this is not exactly a Neuvillette guide, and if you really want one, let me know in the comment below if you want me to make like a constellation comparison video on Neuvillette. I'll do it. So is Neuvillette F2P friendly? Let me answer that question in a single term. Yes. Let me explain now. Neuvillette's best teams don't even require you to run anyone else with Neuvillette, because back in 4.1 Abyss, Neuvillette's solo clears were a massive thing. Neuvillette has great 4-star F2P options such as the P Amber and the Ash-driven Drinking Horn, which actually make him deal decent amount of damage. Neuvillette's best in slot artifact set is basically just one. You're supposed to be running March as the Hunter on him through and through. It provides you 36% crit rate on the 4Ps and 15% charge attack damage bonus on the 2-piece effect, making him extremely comfortable to build around for crit damage. Therefore, I will stand by my statement of saying he is very F2P friendly. Now let's talk about the bad about Neuvillette's rerun in version 5.3. Well, technically at C0, Neuvillette does not have any sort of resistance to interruption, therefore he gets interrupted quite a lot with strong attack enemies, right? And so he loses his shot attack because of the stagger and therefore losing overall DPS. You should be able to easily work around the restriction of Neuvillette's interruption to resistance by using a Zhongli in your team comps and making it more comfortable. Well, surprisingly, Zhongli is also getting a rerun, so if you really want to back yourself, that Neuvillette Zhongli premium combo to make sure your C0 Neuvillette does not get thrown around in the abyss by consecrated beasts, just make sure to grab yourself a Zhongli. However, Layla, Diona, and other shielders perform really well for Neuvillette as well. Especially someone like Layla, whose Constellation 4 can also benefit the Neuvillette's charge attack, would be a great addition to your Neuvillette team comps. Before we move on to the next section, I would like to have a little bit of your attention, please. If you're enjoying the video so far, I would really appreciate if you leave a like, leave a comment, and please subscribe to the channel. It really helps me out a lot and means a lot to me. Alright, thank you, bye. Now, let's talk about the ugly part about Neuvillette's rerun in version 5.2. It has nothing to do with Neuvillette, by the way. It has everything to do with Malvika's release in version 5.3. Now, Malvika is gonna be our 6th Archon addition to the entire roster of Genshin Impact. Now, being the Pyro Archon, she has some tough shoes to fill. Therefore, making Malvika a much awaited and anticipated banner to come. And so pulling for Neuvillette when Malvika is so close might be a really bad idea for a lot of different players in Genshin Impact. So my suggestion for all of you guys is probably to just wait for Friday when we get the live stream for Genshin 5.3, and then you can decide whether you want to pull for our Hydro Dragon and go for Malvika, or you want to skip Hydro Dragon and go for Malvika. You have to make some tough decisions, and if you're lacking Primo Gems, at the end of the day, you are responsible for your choices in Genshin Impact, so I hope you make the right decision for yourself. Now let's talk about Neuvillette's Abyss usage rate since version 4.1 until version 5.1. Okay, on the left we have Neuvillette being used at 61.1% in version 4.1. After the release of Furina in version 4.2, his usage rate skyrocketed from 61% to 86%, and ever since then, he has maintained a steady rate of version usage rate from 86%, and nowadays it's about 74.4%, which goes to show that Neuvillette is a fairly consistent DPS selection when it comes to Abyss usage rate. And it just goes to show that he has great damage, he's consistent, and you will never regret pulling for him. So yeah, moving on to the next part of the discussion, whether you should be pulling for Neuvillette or not. In a simple word, the answer is yes. He is a great DPS, very consistent, always used in Abyss, and so you will get the most value out of him. In a more complex matter, the answer actually depends on you. Do you like him? Do you like his playstyle? Do you want Malvika? Do you have wishes? All these factors come to play if you want to pull for Neuvillette or not. So make your decision wisely. And as a final note, I stream most night on Twitch at twitch.tv/Dragner, so do check me out with the link in the description. I would love to have you there, okay? And as always, thanks so much for watching. I will see you in the next one. Peace.